How's it going, everybody? Andrew Zarian here, Wrestling Observer Live. We're here every day, Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. on Saturdays with Jim Valley, and Sundays with me, 6 p.m. It's me. I'm here, Andrew Zarian. Man, every week I start the show, and after I'm done doing a show, I think to myself, like, okay, that was a good show, that was a bad show. Last week it was a slam show. RJ City was on, Matt Ryan was on with us, and I'm like, I'm like, this was a good show, but man, what am I going to talk about next week? I have never had a moment where there has not been a big story to come out since I started the show. And a lot of conversations regarding AEW, CM Punk, MJF, Hangman Page. It turned into like a 4-page note for me today with the show notes. Matt, our producer, had to sit there and he was putting everything together. And I'm like, my God, why is it like 4 pages? It's like a lot happened. And obviously, CM Punk's unplanned promo on Hangman Page, or planned, depending on who you ask. I'm going to talk about that when I bring in my co-host, Kate Elizabeth from Fightful, in a little bit, because this is a interesting period for pro wrestling between what's happening in WWE with the Triple H era, I guess you could call it, what's happening in AEW with, they've had a rough couple months, but the product is not really affected by it. It's just a lot of behind-the-scenes issues. We're going to talk about that. Plans for All Out. I don't know if this changes anything because we got a big main event next week, which a lot of people expected for All Out. NXT rebranding again. We saw that the image is a little different now. It's a white logo. And I'm hearing a lot more changes happening here. Very interesting times for professional wrestling, but it makes it very interesting for all of us. This is why we watch pro wrestling. This is the stuff that we enjoy. Either if you're a casual fan or not, this behind-the-scenes stuff gets people talking. And I feel like a lot of people are talking right now about what's happening within AEW, what's happening within WWE, the Vince McMahon scenario, another story coming out in September from the Wall Street Journal, it seems like, which is going to have a lot more news. Listen, we got a packed show today. Packed show. When I get back from break, Kate Elizabeth from Fightful will be joining us, and we're going to go into all the news of the week. Wrestling Observer Live, Sunday edition. We'll be right back after this. Stay tuned.
Hey there, everyone. While we take a quick break, I have another trivia game for you, and this time I'm going to go ahead and quiz you on how well do you remember All Out 2021. Let's play. Question number 1. How many title changes did we see at All Out 2021? A0, B1, C2.
Wrestling Observer Live, Andrew Zarian, Sunday edition here on Sports Byline. I'm joined by, first time we've actually ever spoken, like in person. My guest today on the show. You meet a lot of amazing people online. You meet a lot of great minds on social media, and you kind of become friends online. And I think it's an amazing thing, especially when you're talking about professional wrestling and people with, good, solid, like-minded opinions, and you can have a discussion over. That's why I love doing the show. It's a lot of fun for me to meet new people. And this is not a new person that I'm meeting today, but this is the first time we're talking or even doing a show. Kate Elizabeth from Fightful.com. What's going on, Kate?
Not much. How are you doing? I can't say not much. That's a lie. There's a lot of crazy stuff happening in wrestling.
Tons of crazy
things. Well, how are you doing?
Listen, as good as I could do. It's been a long weekend.
There you go.
The kids are home. It's the summer. I've watched way too much of the Mets give up runs this weekend. After this, now I relax after this show. But Kate, it's great to have you here, and there's so much to talk about, luckily for us. But we started off, the last couple of weeks have been nutty, especially the last couple of months have been nutty for pro wrestling. Between what's happening in WWE and the changes happening there, which we'll talk about later on in the show. But the main story here of the week was the impromptu shoot on Adam Page, or the planned shoot promo on Adam Page. This is very interesting to me. So I want to find out what you think of this, obviously. But let's fill in the audience what happened. Wednesday night starts off Dynamite. CM Punk comes out. This is his promo, his return promo after being injured. And he starts the promo off with saying he has two things to discuss, one important and one not so important. Turns into a burial of Hangman, calling him out, knowing he can't come out, or a planned promo. We'll leave it up to the audience to decide. But he essentially challenged Hangman for a rematch on the spot. Hangman doesn't come out. He calls him a coward and an expletive that we can't say here on the radio. And then you go into the thing with Moxley. It felt clunky to me when I heard it. And just knowing like the delivery of promos and how they work. But, this is a new company. It's not WWE. Things are a little bit different as far as pro wrestling goes, where now we have a division amongst the fans, which is awesome. Some people think this was a CM Punk moment where he decided that he's going to, quote unquote, go into business for himself, which that expression is a little weird. It's an independent contractor's business. Of course, you're in the business of yourself, right? And, now we're going into a main event next week that was supposed to happen on the pay-per-view. So what did you make of this? Did you initially, when you heard it, think, oh, man, they're involving Hangman in this program? Or did you think, well, why is he calling him out? That doesn't sound right.
I was kind of somewhere in between a little bit. So looking at it in real time, I felt like it was planned because they were in West Virginia, which is like Hangman territory, right? It felt weird that Hangman didn't respond, but I thought maybe like, this honestly to me was like, oh, this is a cool way to get to Omega probably after the trios tournament. Like, I'm sure there'll be some interactions with Omega and Page during that. Maybe Omega and Page mend fences, and then Omega is coming to Page's defense. Like, I thought we were setting that up. And with what happened with Mox after, I was like, well, this feels very like Punk is on his way to turning heel, even if he doesn't do it like right this second. It felt much more heelish, much more of the teeth that we're used to seeing CM Punk come out with.
Did you think it was more heelish?
Think too much of it.
Did you think it was more heelish than his promos with Hangman? Because he came off as a heel during that promo. Like all the promos, he came off like a heel against Hangman to me.
Yeah, I think that was a little bit. To me, those promos both felt like we're two faces and we need to give dimension to the story without, like, Hangman was so pure babyface to me that I felt like CM Punk was like, well, I'm a face, a bunch of people are going to be cheering for me, but let me at least add in some shades of attitude and some snark here to give this feud some teeth. This is for the title. It should still mean something. So I didn't really think of that as him being heelish as much as I thought of it as, let's dirty up one of these baby faces so that the story has some texture to it, which I thought was really, really fun. So this felt more, I think, because it's a unification of sorts, right? Like, this felt a little bit more like heelish to me, in that I think Mox has done a really good job in his place. And I felt like with Hangman, he needed to go the places he went. I felt like this time he didn't need to go the places he went because it was title for title already. So I think it just felt more like heel work because he went out of his way to say some of the things that he did.
Yeah, I don't know, like, personally, my opinion on this. I'm a little conflicted. You've seen the report. Dave reported that, he was told by people that, this was legitimate. That wasn't, backstage. There were conversations that happened. People have picked sides on this, which, the Hangman promo that people are bringing up, that was the moment that offended CM Punk. To me, I don't see how that could offend you, because you're in a program with someone. You're trying to create as much heat for it. You're trying to create as much controversy around it. You want people to be committed to this program, and you take things into a little bit of the zone of reality. CM Punk did the same thing to Moxley. He said he's the third, that he's wrestled better Johns in Chicago. He was the third guy in his group. He was crapping on everybody. I didn't, when you look at, if none of those things were said afterwards, that there was a backstage issue and all this stuff, nobody would question it. But now, because of that came out, everybody's now divided, and they're trying to figure out if this is real or not. At the end of the day, this is something that AEW did need, right? It's been all about Triple H and WWE in the media. All the coverage has been, I mean, even with this show, and I'm sure with yours too, you're spending a little bit more time on WWE coverage because of all the changes that are happening there. What a great way to counter that with this realistic, new age way of doing promos to make people committed to it. Listen, if this is a work, awesome, great. Nobody should be upset if you got fooled by it. If it's not a work and it's legitimate, I think they have a real big problem here. You don't want things like this happening on TV. You don't want your talent feeling comfortable enough to go on TV and bury a guy in their hometown, knowing that they won't react to it because it's going to derail your show.
I also think that, the behavior is not suspicious, but the timing is. So I think it's also very possible that they essentially shot themselves into a work. We've seen this happen all the time. We've seen Punk do stuff like this where it feels like he has one foot in one world and one in the other. That happens all the time with Punk and in wrestling in general. I feel like people feel like it has to be one way or the other. And I think it's entirely possible that they took something that was a conflict backstage and put a magnifying glass over it when the time was right, because who knows? Now there's a Casino Battle Royal match that Hangman could go in and win, right? So I feel as though, people have shot themselves into work so hard, Matt Hardy got rehired off of that, right?
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
I think
he did.
It's so easy to forget that. So I think we have to also leave room for the fact that this could be something that was entirely true, and they are timing it right to put it on television, essentially.
Listen, and that's a very big possibility too, right? And that the MJF stuff is a great version of that. Yeah, there was truth to it. There is reality to it, and they figured out what they were doing apparently, or maybe not. But they put him on TV, and he cut this promo, and people didn't look at it as like, oh, wow, I cannot believe he said that on TV. People looked at it as, yeah, it's a shoot. It's a work shoot. It's part of the program. He's burying Tony Khan. Maybe he is talking about Nick Khan. I don't know. Maybe he's 2 years too early to talk about Nick Khan. I just listen. I love all of it. I think it's fun, definitely, to talk about. But if there is this issue, if this is real, right? If this is 100% real and he went out there and did it, it is beyond unprofessional. And I know you could bring up the Colt Cabana stuff. You could talk about all of that. However, you took a job in a company where you knew he was there. You worked out all of that prior to this. And now, you're upset over the line, or you're upset over this. It's pro wrestling. You need a sense of reality involved in it. And this is as real as it gets. We have a lot more to talk about. Wrestling Observer Live. When we get back, we're going to go into Dynamite and everything else happening in the world of pro wrestling. Wrestling Observer Live here on Sports Byline. Stay tuned.
The answer is 1. Out of 4 championship matches, only 1 changed hands, and it was for the AEW World Tag Team Championship, in which the Lucha Brothers defeated the Young Bucks. Question number 2. Who wasn't in the Women's Casino Battle Royale? A. Ty Conti, B. Chris Statlander, C. Jade Cargill, D. Rebel. Out of the following names, the person not in the Casino Battle Royale was Chris Statlander, because she challenged Britt Baker for the AEW Women's World Championship. Question number 3. How many surprise debuts were there? A. 2, B. 3, C. 4, D. 5. The answer is 4. We saw the AEW debuts of Minoru Suzuki, Adam Cole, Ruby Soho, and Bryan Danielson. Question number 4. What was the opening match of the main card? A. Moxley vs. Kojima, B. The 10-man tag, C. Miro vs. Kingston, D. Jericho vs. MJF. The correct answer is Miro versus Eddie Kingston. As always, thank you guys so much for playing. I hope you enjoyed this quick trivia video. And if you haven't already and you want to chat some wrestling with me, feel free to follow me on Twitter and or on Instagram at _Denise Salcedo. Now back to Wrestling Observer Live.
Wrestling Observer Live, Andrew Zarian here, Sunday edition, joined by Kate Elizabeth from Fightful.com. You know, I like this synergy that I have with everybody here. I work with everybody. You know, if you're a good person, I enjoy you. I enjoy your content. I bring you on. There's no doors that are forbidden here. It's wide open. Anybody, anybody could come on. Last segment we were talking about CM Punk and Hangman Page, but we didn't go into what happened after that promo that he cut on Hangman. Moxley came out and they did one of the best brawls I've ever seen in pro wrestling. I thought the pull-aparts were great. It could kind of get hacky sometimes with the pull-aparts, with people not really being aggressive, but these two really did a great job. Really sold the story between these two, and they sold it so well that this is the main event for Wednesday night in Cleveland, Ohio. You're going to have CM Punk and Jon Moxley go one-on-one for the world title, interim champion versus the world champion. And according to Dave, this is still the plan. This is still the match at All Out. So, Kate, what do you think they're going to go? I want to get two versions of it. One, what you think they're going to do, and two, what you would like them to do.
Oh man, I would love for them to change the main event of All Out to be either Punk and Hangman because of this news, or Punk and Danielson as a way of like escalating Punk versus the Blackpool Combat Club and having Punk officially turn heel. I think what they might do, and I don't want them to do this, but because it's Cleveland and that's where he walked out on WWE, I think he might not show up for the match, or he might not have the match due to some certain circumstance. But they don't usually swerve crowds like that, and I think that's important. I think that's bad business, but it does feel like it got moved up. That felt super weird. That's not normally in their character, but maybe the match just doesn't happen and they move it to All Out again.
Yeah, do I want to see them have another match? No, but I don't see them false advertising this, like you said, that this becomes something else. I do, however, think, the MJF card is very interesting here because, man, you want this. Obviously, they know what they have in this kid. He's 26 years old now, but they know what they have in him. They know how special he is. He's not an act that comes around too often. I mean, what happens if he beats CM Punk in Chicago? It's MJF and CM Punk in Chicago. Nobody's going to complain about that main event, and he beats CM Punk. I could see that happening. Yeah. Do you?
I definitely think MJF being out of commission here is something that's interesting because there's so many angles you could do that, right? Like, you could have him beat Punk. You could have Punk and MJF be in conclusion and collusion and running around causing all sorts of mayhem. Like, that's a terrifying heel duo if I've ever seen one. Yeah. I think that could be a whole bunch of fun and a whole bunch of trouble. I like that
dastardly duo.
Right? That would be so much fun. And I think AEW is so stable heavy. I think that could be a blast. I just can't imagine them like shortchanging a CM Punk title reign a few times like that. That gets tricky. Like, at some point then MJF feels more important than CM Punk in the company, or like, what does that look like? It's a little bit tricky because you have this interim title and this main title. I would rather just CM Punk lose to Mox straight away. Yeah, I think that would just be cleaner.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they have a lot of options here, and they have great top talent here, so they could do something with. And here's the amazing part, right? We're talking about CM Punk. We're talking about Adam Page, and he wasn't even in this program. We're talking about Jon Moxley. We're talking about MJF, who hasn't been on TV in months. You know who we have not talked about? And it seems like this is a unanimous thing where that CM Punk moment took so much away from this, and it's the Kenny Omega return. That was going to be the big story here. That was what we should have led in with. And it really got, and I don't know if it's by design or not, but have you noticed that also? The conversations are really not so much about Kenny Omega returning.
I think because we half knew, like, I think that was kind of not deflating, but because I think we all kind of expected it and he did return. And I also think, like, this trios program setup seems so perfect for him that maybe it's not like as dominating, but I do find it very interesting that this stuff is happening with Hangman and all of a sudden the Elite is kind of, friends again. So I think there's definitely a possibility there. Like, that was before I found out any backstage stuff. I was like, oh, Hangman is going to be a stepping stone to Omega. Made total sense in my mind. And I moved on from it and watched the program with Mox start to unfold. But it is kind of nuts. Like, Kenny Omega was the last champion, and now he's in your picture here right before we had the Hangman and Punk succession. So he is a returning champion, and him re-entering the fold is definitely something that should make it interesting. And Omega Punk All Out main event seems like, gosh, I can't think of something that would sell out the United Center any faster.
Well, that is the match, right? You want to sell out 17,000 to 20,000 people. Omega Punk would be the one. Omega Danielson would be another one. They could do again. They could do Punk Danielson again. They have so many varieties here, but they have to get to these, which I want to go into. But, you look at this and you're saying, okay, Kenny Omega came back, right? They have done an interesting job with title defenses where people don't challenge for their rematches immediately. Chris Jericho didn't immediately go for a rematch. Hangman didn't go for a rematch. Kenny Omega obviously didn't because he's hurt. But this is an interesting thing where you don't get these rematches immediately following the loss of the title, which I like. You kind of separate the two after that. But, right now we got a very strong top tier to them with everybody coming back. I'm more curious about Kenny Omega's singles run in the next couple months versus his trio's title win, or if he does win. I don't know if that's, like, for me, I want to see him as a singles. I don't want to see him in trio. I think it's cool that he'll, if they do win the title or they go into a program somehow, they're using this to elevate the trios title. But I want to see him as a singles. I want to see him do those 20, 30-minute matches. Maybe he can't right now.
I think that's the other thing, is Kenny 100% is a whole other discussion. But to me, the move in the trios titles is to put it on the Dark Order. They've needed direction for a while. I think they deserve it. They're perpetually over with the fans. The Dark Order has so many interesting combinations against other trios that you can present. Like, I think the move is put it on the Dark Order, but also keep Kenny face by having him mend fences with Adam Page and reuniting the Elite. I think is so fun. I don't think it needs to be a long, drawn-out thing in the trios division. I want to see Kenny as a singles wrestler too. As far as the rematches go too, I think there is an interesting wrinkle in this story that's largely been overlooked, in that, Punk got injured almost immediately after he won the title. If Hangman was the next lined up rematch. They very well could have wanted to run that back. I felt like the story could have warranted it. But I do like that there's not an assumed rematch and that they only do them when the story does warrant it. So maybe this is like, it seems very possible to me there was backstage drama. They're putting a magnifying glass on it, and maybe the plan was Hangman Page all along after this Moxley situation.
Yeah, man, and they have not done a great job at selling tickets for that Arthur Ashe show here in Queens, New York. They're not. It did not move at the rate that the last set did. They still, I think they have like 6,000 or 7,000 tickets open, something significant here. So, I mean, what better way to sell out that building again, or come close to it, by setting up a major match that piggybacks off of All Out? I think that would be the way to do it. I think that'd be an excellent way to do it. So now we're going to get Jon Moxley, CM Punk next week in Cleveland. I'm looking forward to that. The trios tournament's continuing, which is fine. That trios thing, I think the end result, obviously it's going to be, before Kenny left, he was supposed to go into a program with Adam Cole. That was the plan for when he comes back. So I don't know if they'll continue that, or maybe they'll go in a different direction. Tony tends to stick to the plans. Let's look at this. Here you go. Here's the card for All Out so far. AEW Women's World Championship. You got Thunder Rosa and Toni Storm. I think this is Tony's moment. AEW World Trios Tournament Finals, which will most likely be Kenny and the Bucks versus whoever. Who do you think they'll go up against?
I think it'll be Dark Order and Hangman. I think this devices to Hangman in the corner of the Dark Order.
Interesting.
But it's
or Death Triangle, maybe. I mean, they could do that.
Yeah, I feel like there's so many possibilities there, right? But I feel like Hangman made such a point to say, I'm going to be in the Dark Order's corner, that it makes me feel like they're going to reignite the friendship of Hangman and Kenny through this.
Interesting. We also have Sanjay Dutt, Satnam Singh, and Jay Lethal versus Wardlow and FTR at All Out. Weird combination there. I would have liked to see FTR do something else and not in a trios match. And you got the Casino Ladder match, which was just added on Rampage. No competitors announced here. So they're getting ready. They're stacking this card up. A lot of people are going to be excited for this pay-per-view. Obviously, it'll be a strong pay-per-view. It tends to always be with them. They really don't have bad pay-per-views. But when you have so much happening and so many people in the mix. Also, I believe they're going to announce probably next week Jericho and Danielson, which I'm into. Are you into it? I saw a lot of people crapping all over it.
I'm very into it. I feel like Moxley and Jericho was a phenomenal match. I can't imagine Jericho and Bryan Danielson being worse than that. Daniel Garcia custody on a pole match makes me very interested.
That's the one.
That's the direction that they're going.
That's the one.
But my favorite story, I think, in all of wrestling right now is Ricky Starks and Hobbs, and I think that's going to get announced for the card too.
That's another one.
I think that's been almost perfect storytelling, and I'm excited to see the blow off of that eventually.
I did not want to see them break up, but now that you see these two guys and you think about their future, they have to be singles. So Hobbs is a big singles star. They just need to push the momentum with him. He has that look, man. Nobody looks like that. Nobody's that size. It's a very difficult thing to achieve. So, and he has presence. Ricky Starks as well, unbelievable guy. A lot to talk about. We're gonna go into Starks too. We're gonna go to a quick break, but before we when we come back. Not before. When we come back, we're going to talk about WWE NXT Europe in 2023 and the changes happening in NXT and WWE TV. We'll be right back after this. Stay tuned.
Now, one of my most favorite games to play during these commercial breaks is the Word Scrambler, Word Unscrambler, whatever the hell this game is called. Let's unscramble some words. Today's category is AEW wrestlers. Whose name is this? The answer is Angelo Parker. Next one, whose name is this?
Wrestling Observer Live, Andrew Zarian. Sunday edition of the show. I'm joined by Kate Elizabeth from Fightful today on the show. What's going on, Kate? Enjoying your time?
Living the dream,
Have I scared
man.
you yet? I haven't gone nuts on this show.
You haven't scared me at all.
Matman is
I
a
know,
very
I'm
different
almost-
show.
I'm waiting for it. But I'm just jamming in and out of your commercial breaks. Your songs are just like
Love
so
it.
choice today.
Love it. A lot more stuff to talk about. I mean, we spoke about AEW for a little bit, but a lot of changes happening in NXT and NXT UK and WWE. They announced that NXT UK is going on hiatus, pretty much meaning it's finished. WWE is launching NXT Europe in 2023 sometime. The final NXT UK show will be Worlds Collide, taking place September 4th at 4 p.m., the night of All Out. So a lot of wrestling that day. UK talent was featured this week on NXT TV to start the build to bring them over, including Tyler Bate, who hasn't won the UK title on TV yet, but he had the title, right, Matt?
Yes, he did.
Okay. Which was weird. Most of the talent was let go. Some of the talent like Trent Seven, Mark Andrews, Flash Morgan Webster. List goes on. What do you make of this, Kate? they're saying they're going to open up NXT Europe in 2023. Is this the end of NXT's expansion, or do you think this is a restart that they're hitting?
I hope it's a restart that they're hitting, but it seems like a lot of things are getting rebooted across the board, right? I don't think NXT 2.0 has been successful in it feeling like a television product. I think there's some talent that can go to the main roster, but if NXT 2.0 was to be aligned with the main roster vision of Vince, Vince isn't in charge of the main roster anymore, right? So I don't think the crossover with the UK was working out particularly well either. So I think if they're rebooting with a new vision, it's almost the right thing to let the talent go, because I think it's going to take time to restart something with a different direction, hopefully an improved direction. And you don't want to hold talent captive in that way. So to bring some over to the NXT proper brand is a good call if you think they're going to be moving along. But I feel like for a long time, NXT 2.0 has not felt like a TV product, to be quite honest. I cover it every Tuesday, and NXT should be people that are going to be moving up to the main roster at some level up for people who are in like developmental. So I think every release day sucks. You never want to see someone lose their job, but if it's going to be a realignment and a relaunch in Europe, I think that's very good. I know there were also talks about an NXT Japan situation too, which I don't know if that's something that's going to get rebooted, but I feel like there's a lot of swift changes being made.
Yeah, and there was a story there. There was a story with NXT Japan and what happened with trying to deal. I got to confirm this story with Dave or someone else, but a while ago, they had big plans, and I believe the story was that they were looking to purchase a Japanese promotion. All right, not New Japan, not All Japan. They were going to purchase a Japanese promotion or work with a Japanese promotion to get it going, and they kind of got worked from what was said to me. I'm going to confirm this. I don't want to put out the wrong info, but I remember a story like that a couple of years ago. Now, Matt, I'm going to ask you a question. Do you remember how long ago somebody mentioned to us that NXT UK was essentially going to get cut? Was it before the pandemic or was it after?
It was after, and it was this year at the beginning of the year, I do believe.
It was, yeah.
Our attention.
Yeah, and it kind of makes sense. And now they're doing it. It didn't become what they wanted it to become. And I think a lot of people watched those. They thought it was going to be a production out of Royal Albert. I mean, I'm saying the viewers, not WWE, right? A lot of people watched those initial NXT UK shows, and they were blown away by it. The talent was different. The work rate was different. The audience was unique and interesting. They really elevated the product, and they were shooting it in really unbelievably beautiful venues. Obviously things change. Interest drop. Pandemic happened. They couldn't run shows, and they kind of got the kiss of death. And it's very difficult to come back from something like that. But the intention of NXT UK opening was not done with positivity. It was done as a counter move because the UK wrestling scene was on fire. They didn't want to allow anybody else to get any kind of leverage with them there, and they thought they could pull it off, and they didn't.
Yeah, I think there's defense and offense with moves right? And I don't think that was a move of offense. I think you're 100% right, and that's a move of defense of and right around that time too, they were in talent hoarding mode, right? Where they were signing people and putting them on the shelves because they didn't want anybody else to get their hands on them. Starting NXT UK also feels more like a defense move than an offense one. And when you don't have an offense move, you're not really treating it with the same creative care that you might be treating your other programs with. But they have absolutely world-class talent that were involved in it. So they're going to find jobs elsewhere, and I'm happy for them. They might even end up joining NXT Europe, but until they figure out what that is, you got to go let them work elsewhere.
Yeah, and I think a lot of guys are going to come over, obviously, and they're going to find work somewhere else, or maybe they come back eventually. But interesting stuff. A lot of changes very quickly. Also, in an interview, shockingly, with Fox News, and I've never really seen them cover wrestling to this like this. It came out that Shawn Michaels has a new position in the company. He is what is it? What is the official title? It's something like head of creative, head of talent, and creative something. It's like a strange title they gave him.
Development, I think.
Development, something. Matt can pull it up when he has in a second. But okay, there you go. What is the title?
meant creative.
Okay. So I guess talent, creative, like your gimmicks, I guess. I mean, I don't know. All right, cool. You know, Sean's a great mind, and Hunter's, obviously, he's been on creative since his time in DX in some capacity. So this guy really knows how to, you know, what he's doing. And we saw his success with NXT. It was a nice long run he had over there. And it's rare in wrestling to get a consistent run like that. We also saw the G1 conclude. Okada has won the G1 by defeating Will Ospreay. Uncle Dave gave it 5.75 stars. I agree with him. It was a fantastic match. This is his 4th win, his 2nd consecutive. There's only one other person with more wins, and it's Chono with 5. Kate, what did you think of this match? I thought it was unbelievably good.
I thought the match was incredible. I know a lot of people are kind of feel like that maybe Okada is taking up a lot of oxygen, but if he keeps putting on matches like that, I don't understand how you can make an argument that this guy doesn't deserve it. And from a storytelling perspective too, I think that leaves so much to be told with Ospreay in the future. I think it's a great move. I don't think it's a wrong move to ever have Okada winning anything the way that he's been putting on matches. And
so impressive.
So impressive. And I feel like Ospreay is evolved when he put on all that physical mass over COVID. Like his entire repertoire changed, I think. And this version of Ospreay having a match with Okada, I think is some of the best wrestling you could ever see. Like, I think his evolution has been so impressive in ring, and that match was just incredible. And it delivered as far as like a G1 final. I feel like Wrestle Kingdom didn't feel totally like we're back to normal, like New Japan Pro Wrestling. This felt like we're back, baby.
Yeah,
like,
this
is
was
what
this
New
definitely
Japan is all about.
Yeah, and listen, I've been honest with everybody. You know, the pandemic era was terrible for New Japan. I think they suffered the most. From 2019 to now, they have suffered the most. Actually, but even before that, you know, 2017, 2018 to now, they've been suffering a lot because talent left. But, you know, this is their moment. They still don't have live active crowds that could scream and yell. That comes in later. They're going to reduced capacity still. You know, by the time Wrestle Kingdom comes, which they announce, one night only, I'm so happy it's one night. I don't like this 2-night stuff. I think you end up doing too much and you give matches that you really don't want to give. If you have a super card and you run a 2-night show, it's one thing. But when you have to fill in the blanks now with matches that people, you know, quick 5-minute matches just to fill up a card, it doesn't go far. I am not a fan of the 2-night WrestleMania. I'm not a fan of the 2-night Wrestle Kingdom. I want your best of the best to be on the card. I get why they do it, obviously. The money is astronomical. You could double your sales. WWE just announced the biggest one-day sale for tickets. It was like 80-something thousand tickets they sold. They've never done that. And that's business that you'll never be able to do with one arena. It is a money-making machine now, and it kind of dictates the direction you're going. I think for Wrestle Kingdom, they were the first to do that 2-night thing. It worked initially, and then now they just don't. They don't have the programs to garner a second night. I don't know if you feel the same way about that or not.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I feel like if the creative begs for it, a 2-night makes total sense. I think from a perspective, they're always going to do it. But if you look at the disparity between night 1 and night 2 of WrestleMania this year, I think that is like the most obvious thing in the world, especially when you're throwing pre-shows on top of that, right? Like WWE seems to have shifted to pre-shows that have no matches on them, which is so weird to me. But like the fact that you still gave the New Day 2 minutes when you had 2 nights of WrestleMania just shows you that like it was mismanaged from the get, but elude the quality of your card for sure. Spread it out to 2 nights.
Yeah, it's all interesting to me. I mean, the fact that we're getting New Japan put on a very good main event for the G1. They're also, by the way, they're coming back to New York, which is very interesting to me. They're playing the Palladium in Times Square on 44th Street. It's called New Japan Rumble on 44th Street, October 28th, which I'll be there. I work down the block. My office is on 39th, so very convenient for me to go to the show. It's also going to involve Stardom talent for the first time. So very interesting stuff. Will appear first time in New Japan card in America, which I'm looking forward to because Stardom is unbelievable. Very interesting moment right now in pro wrestling. Look at all the stuff that we've talked about. We are not talking about Roman Reigns and Drew McIntyre in Cardiff, which is fascinating to me. I think that show is going to be a mega show, but really, like, everything else that has happened has taken up so much more of the attention than this card, which the show looks like it's going to be magnificent. It looks like it's going to be a great show.
I'm excited for Sheamus versus Gunther too. Like, there's so many things that I'm excited about on that card, but I think there's such.
Are you excited about
overarching
Gunther and
story.
Sheamus?
I am, for
You
real.
are. Okay.
They're going to beat the hell out of each other.
They
Are
are.
you kidding?
They will.
Bring
that'll
that on
100%.
all day. That'll be so much fun. But I think there's just such an overarching thing of Triple H's creative direction and a lot of really big differences really fast. So more than any one match to be excited about, I think I'm just excited to be more excited about the WWE product overall again. Like, it makes me really happy to be looking forward to these shows instead of feeling like I'm getting matched to death. Pacing is going to drag it down. Like, I think we've seen a lot of very big changes happen very quickly and a lot of small changes that make a really big difference happen very quickly. So I'm very excited for Clash at the Castle, but I'm most excited to just feel like the mid-card matters again. Like, all of these little changes, people getting re-signed, Shayna Baszler feeling like a badass again. Like, I'm excited for all that stuff.
Yeah, very, very cool stuff. Very cool stuff happening. Listen, if you like it, you like it. You don't like it, you don't like it. I've been down on WWE for a very long time. I think their TV's been terrible. I think their matches have not been good. It has been a half-done product, in my opinion, for a very long time. Yeah, of course they have some diamonds in the rough, but it has not been the product that we are all used to, when it comes to really good wrestling. But now they're trying different things. They're going in a direction that, a lot of people are happy about, and I'm watching more WWE now to see what happens. Wrestling Observer Live. We're going to go to a quick break, and we'll be right back after this. Stay tuned.
The answer we were looking for, Griff Garrison. And can you unscramble this name? And the answer for this one was Michael Nakazawa. Who can this be? And the answer we were looking for here is Jamie Hayter. Last one, whose name is this? And for this last one, if you guessed Time Mellow, you are correct. These are always a whole lot of fun. Thank you guys so much for playing, and I'll see you on the next video. Back to Wrestling Observer Live.
Wrestling Observer Live. Andrew Zarian here, wrapping up. The hour goes by quick when you're having a lot of fun. Kate Elizabeth from Fightful joined me today. Kate, I had a blast with you.
I had a great time with you. Thank you so much for having me on.
We're doing the show, but you and I have been doing a show off the air also. We've gone through the Yankees. We've gone through possible World Series outcomes. We've talking about the Mets that just won 10-9. We've had a side show. We were just talking about All Out and what a great experience it was for everybody that's literally here producing the show. I've had such a great time hanging out with you for the last hour, talking. We got to do it again. But where can people find your stuff?
Well, you can find me on Fightful every Tuesday and Friday. We're doing an NXT post show on Tuesdays. That's just like a weird variety show at this point. I don't even know if we can call it a review show anymore. And then on Fridays, doing AEW Rampage and SmackDown. And Wednesday nights at the Mark Order podcast, talking all things All Elite and all over Fightful Select when I feel like popping on there.
It's a lot of shows. It's a lot of fun. Listen, at the end of the day, you're talking about something that you very much enjoy, and that's pro wrestling. I think that's why everybody's here. You know, we're all just hanging out and talking about pro wrestling. It's unbelievable.
And there's wrestling on every night now. It's so much fun. So, and you can find me at Miss Kate Fabe on Twitter too.
Miss Kate Fabe on Twitter. Hey, you can follow me at Andrew Zarian on Twitter. You could follow Wrestling Observer. You can follow Mattman on Twitter. We're everywhere podcasts are available, and this is available on podcasts as well. So you can check it out anywhere you listen to your podcast. I just want to say before we wrap it up, this was a lot of fun. I am looking so forward to Wednesday because I really want to know what the hell is about to happen there. I cannot wait till Wednesday night. Monday looks good too, but Wednesday for sure. I have my hopes up, and I generally don't watch wrestling with high hopes. I will go in neutral so I could get a fair assessment of it, but I'm going in hopeful. Guys, this was a blast today. Wrestling Observer Live Sunday edition, wrapping it up. I'll be back next week. See you next time.